And they're just in this scenario where they're back and forth, and there's really nothing happening other than a shoving and yelling match, which is where action really needs to come into play. It's like, I don't want to get stuck in that in-between. It's like the record skipping. It's like, look, let's stop the record skip, grab the flashlight out, blind them with it, and then smash them in the face with it and get them to move back so you can both shut the door.
The information in this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes. Our informational content cannot address all dangerous situations and cannot guarantee your survival or prevent injuries when the unexpected happens. The decision to carry a firearm, either for recreation or for personal defense, carries the risk and potential for injury and or death. Therefore, it is advised that you seek out and acquire proper training before using a firearm or any firearm-related product.
What are some self-defense techniques?
What would happen if there was a global internet outage?
What should I do if I hear shots ringing out?
Or what I should do if there's a major terrorist attack?
What should I have? What's the best?
What should I do?
What does that look like?
What would you recommend? Is there anything I could do?
All right, guys, welcome back to Dangerous Questions, an Ironclad original. One thing that I'm going to bring up before we dive into these questions this week is being an asset. You hear me talk about it all the time, but you guys watch these videos, you guys ask questions, and I'm providing feedback based off of experience. Being an asset is the goal for everybody. It should be to make yourself irreplaceable. Again, what is an asset? It's when you're not in the room, it sucks. It hurts to not have you there. An asset, you can feel them leave the room as opposed to somebody who's like, man, I can't wait till they leave. We want to be irreplaceable in everything that we do and everything that we're responsible for. But sometimes you have to be patient with yourself, and that's kind of what I want to convey before we start today, is that I always encourage you guys to take notes, to apply this to your life, to get the right training, but it takes time in some cases, especially if you guys are sitting there working a 9-to-5 job or have something that's taken up a large part of your life that you know you want to be better at something. The journey starts now, or it's already begun, but it takes small micro adjustments along the way. Sometimes it does take completely changing your life to doing more of what you know you want to do. Again, if somebody wanted to become an asset and they were living with this fear or something that was holding them back and they could never get to it because they're living a certain way, I would say, well, it's time to change everything. That way you can be more of the asset the people around you need. But just remember, as you guys evolve, this is a lifelong journey. It doesn't end tomorrow, and it never ends for the rest of our lives until the day that we die. We're trying to become more wise, more tactical, more intelligent, and more intentional with everything that we do and learn. And that's my goal for this series, is that you guys are able to apply these things to your life to become an asset. At least if you're just consuming this via radio or audio or watching it on YouTube, something that I said plants a seed that you take action on that saves your life or somebody else's life, or just makes your life better in general. That's the goal, right? We're gonna deal with obstacles all along the way. Let's strive to be that asset. Hey Dom, I've been a big fan of the show. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I enjoy doing it. And have always looked up to you the way that you approach self-defense and tactical training. My girlfriend has mentioned that she's interested in learning more about self-defense, but I'm not sure where to start with her. How can I introduce her to this world in a way that feels fun and empowering rather than just another training session? Okay, well, first of all, I can tell you, that's awesome that she's even expressing interest. I can't tell you how many guys, husbands that I know, team guys that I know that would be so stoked if their wife or significant other showed the least bit of interest, because a lot of the times there's a lot of friction there, and it's usually a contrasting way of life. One person thinks one way, it could be the wife or the husband. I know wives that are really adamant about self-defense, and the husbands don't care. If they're expressing interest, that is the first spark and start to all of it. So first of all, be thankful that it's even a conversation, and then lean into it. A way to make it fun and empowering, just like everything else that we're really called to, is to meet them where they are. And what does that mean? Well, be inquisitive, ask questions like, hey, you brought this up and I know you're a little interested. Of course, we geek out and we love it, and we just want nothing more than just to go and have a 2-week range session. But that's not always the case. It's not always practical. So when we think about our significant other, how can we meet them where they are? Say, hey, if this is something that you're interested in, how can I help support you? What's the first thing that you think you'd really want to get into? They could say some off the wall thing like, hey, I want to go practice capoeira, okay? Which is like a fancy, artsy dancing fighting style that can be extremely effective, and it was for what those guys did at the time. They were imprisoned and they were trying to find ways to practice their art without looking like they were actually fighting. So they had to mask it with some of the more fancy moves. Okay, we learn our body, we learn proprioception through all those things. We're actually become better fighters in all those dynamics. If that was the first thing out of my wife's mouth, I wouldn't be like, yay, let's go practice capoeira. But at the same time, I really should be, because that's a starting point to meet them where they are, even if that's where they thought the best idea was from. I think we need to control our urge to want to naysay everything that comes out of their mouth to start, because the biggest piece to this is momentum. You've got to create momentum. Once they show interest and they have an idea, let's explore that. You have nothing to lose just to explore what that means. They could come up with the most off-the-wall thing that is not even practical, but at least gets you doing it together, and that to me is a win, and that to me is a rep going down the road of the right direction. Then who knows? Maybe 5 years from now, you guys are hitting the range, you guys are hitting the mats, you're doing BJJ, because they see what's going to prevail. The truth is always going to prevail. But even in life, even in our relationships, we have to meet people where they are first and then go from there and build up, regardless of what that is. And if they're your significant other, it's worth investing that amount of time into it. So hopefully that makes sense. And then it will become fun and empowering, because it's partly their idea, and then you get to explore together. The adventure, the unknown, the exploration, that's always the fun part of doing something new. So keep that exciting, and then work together on the truth, and then challenge each other in a healthy way. That'll come out later on, I think, and show and bear fruit. So again, they're showing interest. That's the starting point. And you have more than a lot of people wish they had with that. So really, count that as a blessing and then do something with it.
Recently, whistleblowers have been called before Congress to answer a question that could literally change human history. Is the U.S. military in possession of actual alien technology? On the new 4-part Change Agents Special Series Black Project, an Ironclad original, we examine the history of military research into anti-gravity, strange special access projects, and the work being done by private contractors like Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works to try to understand if UFOs are real, or if the military is hiding a breakthrough that could potentially alter our world. Stay tuned until the end for an exclusive first episode preview. Become an Ironclad YouTube member to binge all 4 episodes of Change Agents Black Project on launch day. Otherwise, catch new episodes weekly. Join now, YouTube at This Is Ironclad.
All right, next question. I'm interested in taking some tactical or firearm classes, but I don't have a partner to go with me, and I feel a bit intimidated by the idea of being the only woman in a class. How do I push through that hesitation and show up anyway? What should I look for in a class or instructor to make sure I'm in the right environment? Okay, this is a good question, and I'm sure there's a lot of women out there asking the same thing. You want to go get tactical training, you know it's important to you, you want to improve on your skills, but it is intimidating to walk into that environment. I would say start just growing your knowledge base on your own. You can do that. It's like when people come to my fight courses, I ask them, hey, have you trained in boxing? Do you at least know what a 1, 2, 3 is? Let's get the basics down so it's less intimidating when you walk into the class. I think some of that base level of knowledge would be good. Now, classes and instructors are changing so much, but you have to be able to build a relationship with what you're getting ready to go do. You might not have ever met the instructor before, but I can promise you that most of the time what you see is a lot of the times what you're going to get. Here's what I mean by that. If you do the proper research, you should pretty quickly be able to tell what somebody's values are. And I'll be honest, there's courses that I would not want to go to. Guys use language and say things and make comments that I couldn't even take my kids to and let them sit on the side of the range because of the way they're talking. That has no value to me. That has zero value. I'm putting myself around people that I don't want to be around, and I'm exposing myself to things that I just don't see how they serve me being a tactical professional. So do the research. If you find a handful of people, start marking them down. And just like anything else that we do when we go buy something, we're really good at research, aren't we? Right? At this point, you go buy something online, you rack and stack, you look at the reviews, you do your homework. And ultimately, I feel like people can make a pretty sound decision based off of their research, because the internet really is at our fingertips to decipher which one is going to serve you best in your life. And that should be the same thing with your tactical firearms classes. Now, with that research, let's go one step before that research at a hierarchy. What's the most important thing? Well, first is, what are you trying to be better at? What are your values? And ultimately, what are you trying to learn? Because there's going to be people out there that are better than that at that than others. So you want to prioritize what you want to be really good at and then find the best person for that role or for that teaching that you're going to be able to transfer all that knowledge and take on that wisdom as you're in the course. So what are you trying to get better at? Go do the research, rack and stack them, do the homework. Word of mouth is very, very powerful. Maybe you don't go online and find videos that you associate with, but then I would start just reaching out to people that you know. And if you don't know anybody, you could go to the local gun shop and start there. You could go to, even law enforcement. You could run into a law enforcement officer and say, hey, I'm literally curious. I want to get into training. Do you recommend anything? You might get the guy that never trains a day in his life and could care less and just does it as a job, and it might blow you off with an attitude. You're like, well, that was really effective. I just asked a law enforcement guy, and that guy didn't give me any good advice. Or you might talk to the guy that is the pro at his department. He is leading the training. He knows what to do. And you might go up to him and he might be like, absolutely, it's really good that you're leaning into your training, and I'm going to hook you up with X, Y, and Z. You're going to talk to Joe down the road. He's very, very good. He puts on women's classes. And just by asking a couple of questions, it leads you to your next answer. And then you find out more of what the truth is, and you apply that and ultimately take action on something. If you're interested in doing it, don't let the intimidation factor stop you and stop your momentum. Use it to fire you up. You're going down the right road, so continue to lean into what you're doing, and ultimately, you will find answers. Everybody that looks and seeks will find.
Ironclad creates premium content no matter the environment. From extreme elements to unforgiving terrain, we thrive on crafting content that captures the essence of your brand in the most challenging conditions. Bring your brand story to life, ensuring your message leaves an impact. Ready to elevate your vision? Connect with us today at ironcladagency.com.
All right, next question. My wife isn't into the idea of carrying a gun, so we've got some contrasts here, right? And I get it. She thinks it's a bit much, especially since we live in a pretty safe area. You never need it till you do. But I still feel like she should have something on her for peace of mind. I don't want to push her into something she's not comfortable with, so what do you think? Should I try to get her to carry something like pepper spray at least, or is there another way to ease her into the idea of personal protection? It goes back to my other point, about the wife or significant other that's interested. Well, we have to create a spark there. That's a conversation like, hey, I know you don't want to carry a gun right away, but what is an area that you think would be helpful to you if you thought something could happen, or if you take the kids with you, or you're by yourself? What's an area that you would want to start in? And if it's a cold, flat out, like I could care less about any of it, then you got some work to do. But most of the time, there's something to build off of. And in a situation like this, you want to start small. You want to build a comfortability level. I'll be honest, my wife wasn't totally bought into the idea either earlier on, where it was a very contrasted thought. She didn't come from a background of being tactical and having a proactive mindset, when it comes to self-defense. And we've grown into that over time. But this is, what can we use as a starting point, as a conversation starter? I think I mentioned WAFT and the guys down there every episode, because what they're doing is effective. One of the things that they have is a flashlight course. They actually do a course where it's all about carrying a flashlight. How do we use the flashlight? How do we deploy the flashlight? How do we hold it, carry it? How do we boost our confidence with the flashlight? I don't really know anybody that wouldn't get to a point where they're confident with carrying a flashlight. It's pretty simple. It's pretty harmless. It doesn't do anything, but it can really add a lot of value in the sense that it becomes that trigger where it's like, look, this is in my purse or in my pocket, and I go to grab onto it, and now I have something in my hand that I can actually strike with. I can light up a dark area. I can tell somebody to get back and don't move any closer. You know, at night, that can be intimidating because like, is that a gun? Is that not a gun? I'm a little blinded, I'm a little disoriented, you know, and you have to play that for what it is, but it does allow somebody to kind of step into that world in a very unobtrusive way. So boom, you get a flashlight. Hey, babe, I'm gonna buy a flashlight. I just think at least having that, maybe even if you need it at night around the car, the vehicle, it might help you out. And then just go over a couple of simple strikes and it might lead you down a road where they're like, you know what, that actually helped me the other night, or I thought about it. And remember to teach them that it's a trigger. I pull my flashlight out, that sparks my mind right away that I need to be prepared. I need to be more aware. I need to be strong, confident, look around me, get myself in a good position, know who's with me. Do I have assets or liabilities? Where am I at? What are my routes? What are my escape routes? That trigger should become innate, instinctual in what we're doing. And then it becomes that way with everything else. You know, every time I pull my blade out, that's what pulling the blade out is to me. It's a trigger. It's to make me realize, okay, I just put this in my hand. I'm a warrior. I can handle what's going on. I know my templates. I know how to strike. I know how to move. I know how to use this to my advantage. I'm more aware, and it's already putting me into a mode where I'm like, okay, what's my best position in this room? How do I attack this problem with 3 guys standing in front of me? You know, this should be my trigger of increasing my confidence at an extreme level, and a flashlight can do the same exact thing. So keep that in mind as you're approaching anybody that you want to be more aware. Could be your children, could be your wife, could be anybody that you want to grow in. Start the conversation, start small, and it could be something as simple as a flashlight or even their keys. Hey, when you put your keys or your key fob in your hand, remember, when you walk out to the car, when you're getting ready to go out there and you put your keys in your hand, that's a spark to remember you're in a parking lot. It's a public environment. Be more aware, get your head on a swivel, check behind the vehicle, look at your tires, check behind your back seat, do all the things that you should be doing that take a split second that increase our safety to an exponential amount. And again, you know, you break out keys, old school way of thinking, right? I don't even have to pull these out anymore because they just sit in my pocket. I would say that's probably 80% of the cars at this point, but it's just the idea of having that trigger that's gonna help you in the future. All right, great question. Next one. Dom, love the show. Thank you for your support. I appreciate that very much. My daughter got accepted to a college in New York City. And honestly, I'm a little freaked out about her being in such a big city on her own. I know she's excited, but I can't help worrying about her safety, rightfully so. As a father, what would you suggest I do to help her feel more prepared? Whether it's teaching her some basic self-defense, giving her a few safety tips, or even making sure she has the right gear. How can I set her up for success without coming off as overbearing? Okay, first of all, you're a father, you're a dad. Your job is to be overbearing. And to be honest with you, to call you out and every other father out there, if you've gotten to this point, you're already behind the power curve. And I know saying that comment is not necessarily helpful at this very moment for where you are, but it is a recognition and a spark to help motivate you to realize that you've got a lot of work to do at this point. Because we should be preparing them before that even happens. We shouldn't have to have this conversation. They should already know. And again, I think a lot of fathers out there, they get worried about, well, if I do too much or if I'm overpowering, they're not gonna wanna do this or that. You have to remember, when it comes to self-defense, when it comes to faith, when it comes to values, the truth is the truth. The truth is you being more prepared and preparing your children to deal with an attack or deal with a threat. That's just the truth. That should build their confidence. If we're not doing that enough now, we're going to pay for it later. So if you are behind the power curve, you got to forget about the overbearing aspect of it and just get into it. If she's going to a city or if she's going to a place or a college or a school, or if you're a parent and you're looking at your children going to somewhere specific, what would I be doing? If this decision's already made, if I can't stop that from happening to begin with, and it's like, why am I going to send my kids to somewhere that I'm afraid of or worried about them going into something? Is that really worth it? Well, then let's go back a couple of steps to think what we could do to set ourselves up for success. Okay, the decision's made. They're going to school, bets are off, that's what's happening. As a father, it's still my responsibility forever as a father to identify what the threats are to my children. My job is to provide and to to give security, to give shelter, all of those things, they could come back to me at any point in their life, and I am responsible for providing those things for them, right? So ultimately, what I need to do now is do a major amount of research, like, well, what's the biggest threat that they're going to deal with there? Aside from some basic self-defense, which everybody should learn and everybody should get into, this comes into play of, hey, maybe being in shape is important to them. Maybe they could get a kickboxing class, or maybe you could integrate something that they're interested in. Again, meet them where they are. If you feel like it's too late, it's not. If you feel like you're going to be overbearing, forget about it. Focus on the truth. Do the research. Say, hey, I've been doing some research in the area that you're going in. I know things happen from time to time. I love you with all my heart. You mean a lot to me. I've done a couple things where I really think that are going to help you and avoid getting into situations that potentially could occur. Pull up a news article, pull up something down the road, talk to a friend, get a friend to talk to them, and get them to find that recognition and spark that says, you know what, this is something that I'm interested in. And if it isn't, if they're completely shut off, it sometimes is going to take you going up there, grabbing them by the hand, and leading them into where you want them to go. What does that mean? Hey, I signed us up for a kickboxing class. I'm going to be in town. Can't wait to see you. Really, really, really difficult to do, but really important. And I am telling you, you will sleep better at night if you go do it. If you actually take the action and say, I'm in town for 3 days. I'm going to take you out. We're going to grab a cup of coffee. I'm going to buy your dinner. And when we wake up at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, I'm going to take you to a kickboxing class. That literally is sometimes what it takes. You have to take action. I said this the other day. How can we possibly expect our children to do anything that we're not willing to do ourselves? That's the first mistake. If you're looking in the mirror and you're realizing right off the bat that your child isn't prepared, they're not ready, they're already behind the power curve, well, we have to point the finger back at ourselves and realize, what did we not do to set them up for success? Again, not super helpful when that's where you're at, but you have to be intentional about it now and take initiative on it. I could talk about this all day, but I think that at least provides a little bit of insight about what you can do. You've got to start, you've got to find that spark. You care about your family. I care about my children. So if I realize I've made a mistake and we're behind the power curve, I need to take ownership in that. There's things that you're going to have to sacrifice at this point that you've built in your life, your comforts, your habits, your things that you want to go do with your buddies. Guess what? Ditch a third of them and spend the next 6 months of your life figuring out how you're going to help your daughter accomplish the thing that you think is most important. Because guess what? It came up because it is, but now you have to help see it through. You're not just going to say something and she's going to all of a sudden start doing it overnight. It's your responsibility. All right, great question. I get fired up about that. All right, so that wraps up the questions. We're going to get into the scenario breakdown, which ultimately was 2 women that were working together, and a girl leaves the door to go home for the night and gets confronted by an attacker, a threat, whatever you want to say here. She's ending up in a confrontation now, in a hand-to-hand situation. And I even see at the end, she has a purse on. So go ahead, let it run. We've got this situation where she's outside of the glass door. Her coworker's on the phone trying to, dial 911 or whatever the case is. Again, when you're on the X, it's like, do something to help if you can. This girl's going back and forth outside. This guy clearly is just being disruptive. Now, this is where some type of tool would help. She's got a purse on. She could have had pepper spray, a flashlight, something to access. Even when you're going to your car at the end of the night, this is not an uncommon scenario. These guys are tussling back and forth, back and forth. It's amazing what a good jab to the eye or pepper spray can do in this scenario to stop the attacker from continuing to come in. He's a motivated attacker, but I'm not going to say he's fully committed with everything that he's got. You can tell that he's almost confused about what he's doing here. And I don't know what exactly is on this guy's mind. Clearly something not right and has evil intent. But she gets back inside of the door. He tries ripping it open again. And they're just in this scenario where they're back and forth, and there's really nothing happening other than a shoving and yelling match, which is where action really needs to come into play. It's like, I don't want to get stuck in that in-between. It's like the record skipping. It's like, look, let's stop the record skip, grab the flashlight out, blind him with it, and then smash him in the face with it and get him to move back so you can both shut the door. And again, I don't know what this dance is that her coworker is doing other than just getting stuck in the fight or flight. Like, what do I do? What do I do? Probably freaking out, inside. But Again, we've got to train, we've got to be prepared, we've got to be prepared to do something. This is a vulnerable spot. People going home at night, especially women, going to their car, you've got to be pre-thinking about this scenario already occurring so you can prevent it from the very beginning. You know, have your hand on the pepper spray, have your hand on your flashlight, have your hand on your gun ready to go so if somebody approaches you, you can de-escalate appropriately and with the right intent. How many times are we going to play her dancing around at the door? This is why we train and back each other up. Again, this is, they just got stuck in this in-between. It doesn't look like anybody really got hurt, but you have somebody that could have turned really bad really quick, and this could have gotten, especially if the guy had a blade or a gun, you know, what are you going to do in that type of scenario? You know, for me, it's increasing your awareness in these situations to begin with so we mitigate them from the very start. And we don't end up in this back and forth situation with being at the door. You know, look out the door, you know, see if you can assess what's going on. Is there cameras there? You know, can you rep that out? Can you have somebody walk out with you at the end of the night? Or best of all, can you get the training that you need that we talked about? You know, I highly encourage women to get more self-defense training. Be confident with your hands. Add something that you can carry on a daily basis. And if you can carry a gun, please, by all means, get the training to do it. Because when you're at a disadvantage, you're going to be able to change the tides to that certain situation and get out of it alive. Again, this has been about family dynamics. Be an asset. If you have the spark to go do something, take action on it. If you have the opportunity with somebody in your family, listen to them. Make it fun. Bring them into that world. Make it about them. And ultimately, if you feel like you're behind the power curve on a situation like we heard about that father sending his daughter off to college, it's time to sacrifice and it's time to step up and really take care of that thing that you know that you didn't do enough for and turn yourself into an asset for them so that they can have the tools they need to save their own life. All right, guys, that wraps up the scenario breakdown in this episode of Dangerous Questions. We'll see you guys in the next one. God bless you. Peace.
On the debut episode of Black Project, a Change Agents special series, we examine the strange, true story of the military's efforts to build anti-gravitic craft. From a Nazi weapon expert's fake death and cryptic comments by aerospace executives, to the mysterious disappearance of a scientist on the edge of a breakthrough, we look at the programs being worked on in secret and the question of whether they are from another planet, or are they the results of black projects you were never supposed to know about. Become an Ironclad YouTube member to binge all 4 episodes of Change Agents Black Project on launch day. Otherwise, catch new episodes weekly. Join now, YouTube @ThisIsIronclad.